Trial delays, expert testimony, alleged victim identities, kisses? It's quite the day in court for Sean Diddy Combs. I'm going to bring on Law and Crime Zone reporter Elizabeth Milner, who was in that courtroom to give us the updates on what happened in Combs' criminal case. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. Okay, so I usually do an intro where I recap the criminal case of Sean Diddy Combs, what's been going on, but I don't want to do that right now. I want to get right into this. I want to bring on Elizabeth Milner, Law and Crimes reporter, who is in that courtroom for another pretrial hearing. Good to see you, Elizabeth.
Great to see you, too.
So this, again, is just weeks before Combs is set to go to trial on May 5th. He faces racketeering charges, sex trafficking, transportation to engage in prostitution. He's been hit with a third superseding indictment. And before we get into anything, I asked Elizabeth, I said to Elizabeth, you know, everybody wants to get into this courtroom. I remember during Weinstein, even though we were press, like you had to wait till 5 in the morning. I said to Elizabeth, I go, Elizabeth, how'd you get into court? And what did you say to me?
I said through the door.
Through the door. Through the door. Dead serious. She goes, oh, through the door. Thank you for clearing that up.
It was a long hearing. I apologize for my blonde ditziness.
Everybody outside is still laughing because that happened in real time. So I know you were able to get in, press badge and all. Yeah. First thing I have to ask is, Combs walks in. How does he look? What does he do? What does he say?
Yeah, so unfortunately this time around, my view was a little obstructed. We had the bailiff standing up. We had Brian Steele standing up. So I didn't
His new lawyer.
Yes, his new lawyer, and I'm sure we'll talk about that more in a second. But so I didn't see the moment of when he actually just first walked into the courtroom. But he sat down, and I did notice that he had hugged his attorneys. Obviously, this is the first time that Brian Steele was inside that courtroom after he had filed to be an addition to the defense team. But I did see Diddy shake his hand. So for the most part, he kind of just, from my view, just came in, sat down, but he seemed like he was just ready for the proceedings to begin.
I heard reporting that he blew kisses to the gallery.
So Diddy has a habit of doing that, especially to his family. And so actually when we had first all come into the courthouse, there normally is like a special section where his family does sit. It's on the row to the left of all the reporters. At first we were like, is Diddy's family coming? Are we going to see anybody? Then we saw that his mom Janice had come into the courtroom. So that was presumably who he's throwing, blowing kisses to. And then his son Justin Combs and a friend of Justin's, who by the way was wearing a free puff hoodie inside the courtroom, walked in a little bit after the proceedings had already begun, but I assume those blown kisses were specifically to his family, especially his mom.
That won't be allowed when that trial starts. Yeah. And let's talk about that. When is this trial starting? Why do I say that? Because there's been a lot of back and forth about whether the trial would be delayed for 2 months. I did a sidebar on this yesterday. This is what Diddy requested, a 2-month adjournment, a 2-month delay. Basically was making the argument that the government's still producing all this discovery material to him. It's regarding the new count 4, related to sex trafficking of victim 2, I believe. And the prosecution said, look, we learned this information late. We turned it over. They made the prior argument that the victims have a legal right for this trial to begin and not be delayed. So what was the discussion about a delay today from both sides, and what did the judge ultimately rule?
Well, the judge ultimately ruled that we are heading to trial not in the summer, not in July, August, whatever it may be. We're still going to be heading to trial next month. And pretty much
May 5th.
Yes, May 5th.
Yeah.
And pretty much his ruling kind of surrounded the fact that between Diddy's dream team, defense team, there's a lot of lawyers, right? There's a lot of lawyers amongst different law firms as well, too, where if they aren't feeling like they're getting enough time to respond to either subpoenas or paperwork or anything like that, there's an abundance of them, essentially. So that way someone can get this done in a matter that actually is timely. But also, with that being said, too, the judge was also just kind of discussing as far as the information that's in the third superseding indictment. That information hasn't been necessarily new information. The defense knew about the information and these issues prior. So really, was there a need to delay it 2 months? I'm sure the defense probably wanted that. But I was speaking with other lawyers who were also there in the gallery. And, you know, a lot of people were kind of pointing to why would they want to move the trial 2 months? And I know we had discussions about it, too. You were thinking initially that it was going to be moved. But then to their point, the lawyers that I was speaking to, who, by the way, are not attached to the case, they were talking about how difficult it is to have a summer trial. The jury pool is going to be a lot different. It's going to be hotter outside. So who knows what the outcome may have been had the trial been moved to the summer. But no, we know for a fact it will not be. It will not be delayed 2 months. It's still going full steam ahead beginning next month.
Wow. Wow, unbelievable. I also feel like money is going to play a huge role in Combs' upcoming trial, whenever that should happen. You know, wealth, power, resources. And in that vein, and since April is Financial Literacy Month, I bet you didn't know that, I didn't know that, we have this incredible sponsor who can help you stay on top of your finances, Experian. So the first step to take control of your credit and finances is to download the Experian app, which, by the way, has tons of free tools. Your free FICO score, so it can help you boost your FICO score instantly for free with Experian Boost. Free access to a marketplace of credit card, loan, auto insurance options that are matched to you. Free credit monitoring with real-time alerts to keep you in the know on changes to your Experian credit profile. And by the way, you can easily freeze your Experian credit file for free in the app, helping protect you against identity theft. So make sure your finances are always in great shape with Experian. Use the link in the description or scan the QR code to download the free app now. Results will vary. Additional terms may apply, and see the App Store for more details. Let me ask you this. Last time we spoke about, material being turned over and whether there's a delay, there's a lot of discussion about victim 4 in this case. Was there any discussion today in court about either, by the way, victim 4 or victim 5?
Yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Absolutely. I know on Tuesday when we had spoke, we were talking a lot about victim 4, who we know to be a former employee of Sean Diddy Combs. And a lot of the issues surrounding victim 4 in this particular part was about her emails. I can't confirm that this victim is a woman. But as far as her emails goes, the defense wanted the full scope of the emails that the government did not have access to. And so the defense, to their point, they just wanted the full extent of it so it can show a clear picture, because previously they were arguing that this alleged victim was just cherry picking messages and emails between herself and Diddy and sending it over to the government. The defense on their part, they wanted the full scope of the emails. But as far as the judge and his ruling, he said that requesting the full extent of the emails, which by the way are like 100,000 emails. It's a lot of emails, especially if you were having trial next month. But the request he had said, he being the judge, was a fishing expedition. But he said, and he kind of left the door open with this, that if the defense wanted to make a renewed motion pointing to specific emails, specific key terms, then they could go about filing the appropriate paperwork, see how they could go about doing that. But in terms of just getting all these hundreds of thousands of emails between alleged victim number 4 and Diddy himself, who, by the way, if we know, we discussed this on Tuesday, that if the correspondence was between Diddy, why won't they have access to the emails themselves? But I don't know the full scope of why they don't have those emails. Maybe they were deleted. Who knows exactly? But if the defense wanted to file a renewed motion to get these access to the emails, they could go about doing that, but only if they're going to point out specific key terms, specific key phrases, specific emails. Now, as far as victim 5, who was alluded to a little bit on Monday, but the full scope of who this alleged victim is, not necessarily clear on who this person is or anything like that. So in terms of victim 5, in terms of the arguments today, specifically, we're just kind of about, prior bad acts and how this person will testify as far as when the trial comes. So from my understanding of it, anything that was 20 years ago or anything like that, not saying that this victim in particular was somebody from 20 years ago or anything, but as far as the 404B motion, that was denied pertaining to victim 5. It was a little unclear.
Can I clarify what because we talked about this. So the defense, right, leading up to this, they had said the government wants to introduce all of this uncharged conduct, prior bad acts, alleged sexual assaults. Now, the defense said this is prejudicial. We won't have enough time to prepare. It's propensity evidence showing that, if he did this, he must have been guilty of this. It shows a character trait. Now, the prosecution was basically like, no, it's being used to prove you had an intent to sex traffic people. We're going to show you prior instances of sexual assault. So your defense of, everything was consensual doesn't work. Your defense of, it was a mistake, I didn't know that they didn't consent, doesn't work. And there was a whole back and forth. And I did a sidebar when I thought, this is such a significant issue, it might delay the case. But what you're saying is that maybe victim 5 is tied into this, and this was the only discussion regarding prior bad acts. I mean, do we know if they're going to be allowed in? To what extent?
Yeah, as far as everything, that was a little dicey just because, a lot of it was just legalese. That just kind of went a lot above my head. 404B, 403.
And by the way, you're coming back when we're recording this. I want you to know, she literally walked through the door and came into here. So Elizabeth is we're just doing this in real time.
Yes. So literally just ran out of the courthouse, gathered my notes, gathered my electronic devices, which they take away, and then just rushed back here to the office. So as far as just the prior bad acts go, from my understanding of it, a lot of it, the judge said that the court finds it's illusory in context. So as far as the time frames and whether or not they match up to another victims in the indictment, again, it was a lot unclear, but I'm sure the judge
Yeah.
will file the appropriate paperwork, so that way we get the full ruling all in Judge Submarinian's voice.
But the big point is the trial's not delayed. This is not stopping.